Hi everybody, just trying to catch up a little bit with Chris and Mike from our channel. I decided to pull out an interesting theme for today. After watching some of their videos about their findings, their good stuff, I decided to pull a little bit to my side and shed some light on something that's really dear and fun to me. And I hope you guys like it. A little bit of Brazilian music. So, instead of focusing on a label or period or something, I decided to talk about an artist, a musician, a genius, a conductor, songwriter, which I think everybody knows him. So many musicians, so many artists in general benefit from his work, from his body of work, and I'm talking about, of course, no one less than Antônio Carlos Jobim. Jobim was born in the 30s in Brazil. He was the son of a diplomat, where he was able to have a very good education, musically, and also in all sorts of walks of life. So I'm gonna just, far from being like a complete, perfect, great collection, it's just a little bit of what's in my core collection, what I really like about him. And he was unquestionably one of the great composers of the century, like Cole Porter, Gershwin, you name it, he is at the same level, if not higher. And his influence, you can see even classical music, like Debussy, Ravel, for example, he's a very skilled. I mean, his music is complex, but at the same time simple, beautiful, universal, and it's all over the place, everywhere. So, one of his very first albums, this is a Brazilian edition, Antônio Carlos Jobim, on the record label called Elenco. Elenco means cast in Portuguese. So this is how they look like. They have a deep groove, they're quite heavy records. This company was founded by Aloysio Oliveira and pretty much just short-lived in the 60s, I think, to early 70s. And the pinnacle was Bossa Nova, just about Bossa Nova. And that's how the label looks like. They're quite collectible and nice. Color scheme. Those covers were very simple, just paper, pretty much, and 3 colors. Before White Stripes, before Jack White, they were into black, white, and red. And why is that? Save money on printing. The 60s were a tough time in Brazil, economic crisis. As you know, it's cyclical, it happens. So this is his very first record for this label, and that's the Brazilian pressing. And here's the American counterpart, which I'm gonna show very soon. That was released on Verve. It's called The Composer of Desafinado Plays, and desafinado means off key. Okay, it's the Verve reissue. I don't think it's a first press. No, this is not a first press, but it still is a very nice late Verve release. Slightly changes in the sound, but overall it's the same. However, I like the Brazilian cover better, as we're gonna see. Another album that I really like is Antônio Carlos Jobim with Nelson Riddle Orchestra, which also has an American counterpart, which I'm gonna show soon. Again, this is how the label looks like. This is on a green type of coloring. Is number 6 on the catalog, MEV6. Deep groove, heavy as hell. It plays beautifully. Of course, they are all monos. And this belongs to a radio station. The best way to find good records in Brazil, whenever I go back there, I usually get records that were bought from my vendors from radio stations. And here's the American counterpart, which came out in Warner. As you can see, it's really easy and cheap to find, and his music is amazing. I mean, compositions like She's a Carioca, Água de Beber, Surfboard, Usually Landscape, Felicidade, which means happiness. Most of his work is instrumental, but there's a lot of lyrics. The original lyrics are quite interesting, affectionate, about love and despair, loneliness, universal themes, nature, the world. I mean, the human condition in general. It's very beautiful, very poetic actually. And he wrote a lot of songs with Vinicius de Moraes, which was a diplomat, a poet, very important poet in the 20th century in Brazil, who was also a singer. And if you want a good live record, which is the one that's playing right now, Vinicius and Caymmi, which is probably one of the greatest composers in Brazil also, plus Quarteto em Si, the best vocal quartet. This is a fundamental record in Brazilian music, okay? Also, let's say Gets Gilberto is very good record, however, I would say it's kind of blue in the Miles discography. It's not representative, it's a one-off thing, it's a very focus on selling records to all over the world, being very universal appealing. However, it's not the real deal. This is not what Bossa Nova is about. Then in '67 he recorded this very good record. That is the Brazilian pressing. I bought it over there back home. This is not the American one. Came on reprise. That's, of course, Antônio Carlos Jobim meets Francis Albert Sinatra. Jobim arranged, they played the record, the whole orchestra. Jobim arranged the record, and here's some session pictures. And it's quite interesting, although Sinatra's in the first plane, even Sinatra was like anxious to meeting him and working with him. And according to what I read, Phil Ramone, the famous producer, worked on this on the session. I think was recording engineer, if I'm not mistaken. But in his book, I remember reading, he mentioned the episode. And Jobim came like last minute to the session. Everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, where are you seeing?" He just sat there, while they were playing. Okay, boom. It took one take, and everybody was like mesmerized, and that was it. That's what is in the record. This record, Sinatra won the Grammy for Record of the Year in '66, '67. However, this record lost in '68 to Sgt. Pepper's. They lost their Grammys to Sgt. Pepper's in '68. Go figure, right? I think it was pretty fair. There was a follow-up that was recorded, released on an 8-track, but Sinatra asked the record to be pulled off the shelves. And then later, there were some reissues of some songs here and there. But in 2010, Reprise put together a box with a complete recording sessions of Jobim meets Sinatra, and you can still find it. I think it's CD only, if I'm not mistaken. Some other records, quite good, I recommend. Most of these records are really easy and cheap to find. They sound amazing, and they're like quintessential. Any jazz or music lover should know the songs, because everybody loves them, everybody's influenced by them, no matter whose musician it is, from Herbie Hancock to Joe Henderson, to Wayne Shorter, to Ella Fitzgerald, to Sinatra, everybody. He's one of the biggest influence for all these people, and even more. A certain Mr. Jobim, Warner release. This is a mono record. It's fantastic. It has, once again, Estrada do Sol, which means Sun Road, Don't Ever Go Away, Bonita, Se Todos Fossem Iguais a Você, which means If Everybody Was Like You. Unfortunately, the translations, they miss a little bit of the original meaning of the songs because of rhyme and language and sound. But if you can translate the songs, they are quite touching, very, very beautiful, very beautiful. And after, we have some CTI releases. Wave. Again, these records are really easy to find, really cheap. They sound amazing, especially if you can find a first pressing like this. This came on CTI. And this is Van Gelder, everything. I mean, what else can you get, right? Jobim, recorded by Van Gelder, what else? Next, and this is all like late 60s, early 70s. Next I have another CTI, Stone Flower, which has a beautiful reissue by Speaker's Corner. If you cannot find an original in Brazil, for example, or a CTI, and he has quite an interesting label. I love this label. It's a Brazilian CTI version, right there. You see it? It's quite cool. I think it was actually JVL Facebook page once put this label as a very unique as the group picture for a few days. And again, this is what can I say about these compositions, right? Next, Tide. Tide also, you have the Redemptor Cries up there in the picture. There's another CTI release, another easy and very affordable original Van Gelder. Again, his piano playing, his orchestra, everything. It's just, here's another version of Go from Ipanema. One thing you're gonna find common in his body of work, there's so many rereadings, reinterpretations with so many different artists and arrangements. His music's so rich, so universal. I mean, you can't get enough of this. It's great. In 1974, recorded here in California, he gathered, I mean, in my personal opinion, my personal taste, this is my favorite ever Brazilian record. It doesn't rank number one by any ranks, however, this is my favorite one, and I think everybody should have it, everybody should listen to it, which of course, Elis and Tom. So, Elis Regina, for the few ones that don't know, she was likely the best voice, the best singer, the best everything in Brazilian music. She had a tragic death 40 years ago. But her body of work it goes off the charts. She's referenced by everybody, anyone, from every singer. She has very, very unique work. And this record was made to celebrate her 10th anniversary in the Philips label in 1974. So they came to the US. Some session pictures here, very intimate, a very kind of home feeling, kind of. It felt like home. They were just like playing soccer during lunchtime and recording, and the tracks itself, they have like dialogues and great stuff going on. And most of it is Jobim work with some others from Vinicius that I mentioned before. Aloysio de Oliveira, which is the owner of Elenco label, some Chico Buarque songs, and of course, this is fantastic. I highly recommend this record. This is a must-have for anybody that, you know. This is how the Philips label looked like. The late 60s, early 70s Philips labels, they were really heavy. Play really well. Some of the 70s they don't play very well. I mean, Oil Crisis, so vinyl was not at the peak of its quality. There was a lot of cutting corners, impressing the records. There's a 2010, if I'm not mistaken, remastered CD released in Brazil only. A CD and a DVD 5.1 channel. The work was coordinated by her son, which is a fantastic producer, arranger, musician. I highly recommend that one because there's a lot of nuances that you don't find in an original release just because quality production of the vinyl in the 70s. Lastly, I wanted to show this record here is also on Elenco, and that is Elenco. Let me see which number it is. It doesn't say here actually. It's one of the early Elencos as well. The same beautiful label with a deep groove. Heavy. That's Elenco 17. So this record here teams up with Caymmi. Caymmi, he was one of the main exponents of the bossa from the 30s, 40s. And bossa nova was a new accent that came to the Brazilian music in the early 50s. That's why it's called Nova, which means new. And by artists like Jobim, for example, which was catapulted in Europe and then consequently the US in the late 50s by the movie Black Orpheus. So this is some beautiful, beautiful singing, songwriting, composition. These are some just by Jobim. Eventually I'll have some other videos talking about some other releases. And again, this is just my core collection, something that I really like. I think I like to bring it to light. And I hope you guys liked it, and I do hope it's educative. Thank you.